What's good, y'all? We back on Planet Rell, and today we have episode 2 of the Immortal Thor. Let's get into it. So we start here with Odin standing before Yggdrasil, and he's about to receive wisdom. And if you didn't know how he lost his eye, this is how it happened. And the narrator says, knowledge is power. And then within this specific case, it is great power. Like really great power. Now Odin stabs himself in the eye, plucks his eye out in exchange for wisdom. Now Yggdrasil is pulling Odin within it, and the voice of Yggdrasil says, this is the lesson in the parable. Then Yggdrasil wraps Odin up like he's in a cocoon, and Yggdrasil tells Odin that the story will always change, but the meaning will remain, and a sacrifice will always have to be made. So Odin is within the confines of Yggdrasil, and there is a transformation happening. And Yggdrasil says, for winter to end and for spring to begin, there will always be a cost. Then Odin explodes out of Yggdrasil, now having knowledge beyond knowledge and power beyond power. And this power, which is the Odin power, will be passed down like a treasure, and it has to be used very wisely and sparingly. And now that Odin made his own sacrifice, Yggdrasil says that there will be a time where his children will make their sacrifice. And all power comes at a price. That's why the Odin power has to be used wisely and sparingly. And Thor will now feel that price. Alright, let's pause real quick. This was once shown before during the Mighty Thor written by Mac Fraction, during the Fear Itself event. And I like how they portrayed it during that issue too, this one as well. And not to expand on this more, back during Thor Disassembled, Thor went to go get wisdom, and he plucked out one of his eyes as well. But his father already done it, so he had to pluck out both of his eyes. And they don't mention this, but Thor and Odin both hung themselves when they did this. Like they had to go to the extreme for this. And after all that was done, Thor was able to see everything past, present, and future. Like he saw everything. And that played a part on how Thor became the Rune King. And there will be episodes about that story soon to come, because that story was so raw when I first read it. And if you didn't watch the first episode of Immortal Thor, I will put it in the description below so y'all can watch it. And make sure y'all hit that like and subscribe button while y'all doing that. Alright, boom. So we left off talking about the Odin power and how Thor will feel that price of that power, because he called upon that power to fight Toranos. And Thor strikes Toranos with some lightning. And Toranos calls Thor a micro god. And he says Thor's lightning is nothing compared to his. He's basically calling it trash.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
Now Toranos has the Wheel of Fate, and he throws it at Thor, and Thor does his best to dodge. And he gets out the way, and then he says to himself that even him having the Odin power, Toranos is still overwhelming him. And for Thor to use the Odin power, it will bring on the All Sleep. And for those who don't know, I'm going to tell y'all what it is right now. So it's not that much of an explanation, but it's a type of deep sleep where you just recharge the All power, or Odin power, or Thor power, since that's what it really is now. And while you're in the All Sleep, you can be asleep for like a day or even a week. Like you're going to be asleep for however long it takes to recover. And this happened before the Thor, back during JMS's run. And during issue 6 of that run, Thor went out into space, and he used that power to restore every single Asgardian. And when the job was done, Thor passed out and fell to Earth. Then at the start of issue 7, Hogan and Balder brought in Thor so he can enter the All Sleep. Alright, back to the story. My boy Thor is so tired, and he sees that Toranos is still fresh. And Toranos says to Thor that the wheel is turning for Midgard, but the wheel must turn for Thor first. And Toranos continues to speak down on Thor, saying that the time for small gods is over. Bruh, I would have looked up at Toranos like, who is you talking to, bruh? Then Thor says if he can't defeat Toranos, he must delay him. And he yells out to Toranos like, you may be an elder god, but I'm Thor. And when I tell Earth's skies to open, they open. And a large lightning strike splits the sky open. And Toranos laughs and says Thor, the god of ants, sends a lightning strike against him and cannot even hit him. Now, I ain't go cap. Toranos is talking his trash, bro. But if I'm Thor, I would have said something back on some.
Hey, shut the fuck up, nigga. Shut your bitch ass up before I smack.
And Thor gives a little smirk. And he tells Toranos, before you talk any more trash, you might want to turn around and look. And that lightning strike that Toranos was talking down on opens up into a whole nother dimension. And at that moment, Thor literally opened up the sky. And the narrator says that little smirk that Thor gave had a little mischief in it. And you already know who I thought of. And now Thor is swinging Mjolnir in the air. And Mjolnir has been able to open dimensions before. Now let's go back to issue 425 of Thor. Ymir and Surtur were fighting. And Thor had to intervene because the universe was at stake. So he just sent them to a whole nother dimension. And the dimension was called the Sea of Eternal Night. He got them boys up out of here. And now Thor must send Toranos through that portal that he opened. And that portal is at the farthest end of eternity. And Toranos is trying to stay on Earth while the vacuum of space is pulling at him. Now Toranos is still talking his trash. And he calls Thor a fool king. And he says, how do you plan on banishing me with the wind? For I am the wind itself. Then Toranos continues to talk down on Thor. And he says Thor's limits are all too apparent, while his are beyond Thor's knowledge. And Thor is about to pass out from the all sleep. But he musters up some strength. And he says that his limits may be all apparent, but he made Toranos drop his guard. Then he tells the winds of Midgard to blow like never before and get this contagion, aka Toranos, out of his presence. My boy Thor was talking that talk. He called Toranos an ancient contagion. And now the sky is sealed. And Thor knows that Toranos will only be gone for a period of time. And he also knows that Toranos will be hunting for him. But the good news right now, Thor can get some rest. And Thor knows he needs to go get into bed because he used a hefty amount of the all power. And he's way more exhausted than he wants to admit. Because more of the all power he uses, the deeper and longer the all sleep will be. And Thor going into the all sleep is a risk. And I should have said this earlier, but when you're in the all sleep, you're vulnerable. And that's why he needs to be somewhere safe, because he doesn't need to be in harm's way while in the all sleep. And I wonder if he's going to use the casket that he used back during JMS's run. And that casket has enchantments on it, and it creates a state between life and death. And it also reduces the time of the all sleep. Now Thor says Toranos might have been right about calling him a fool, but he would be a bad king if he left things as they are. Now remember back during episode 1, Toranos caused a lot of damage to the city, even destroying the Statue of Liberty. And now Thor looks upon the destructive city, and he wonders how many people are dying and how many people are already dead. And I know Thor is pissed about all of this because Toranos only came there because Thor was there. And Thor thinks back on a moment where Toranos said that the wheel must turn for him first before Midgard. And Thor says who would he be if he just left and flew away and left the city how it is. And Thor not just about to allow things to be how they are. So he gets ready to fix everything that was destroyed. And Thor knows it'll be a difficult job, and he has to use the all power. And since he's used a lot of it already, he has to be very careful with it because he is already very tired. And Thor has to filter the all power through Mjolnir in a detailed manner, through time and space. Then he says a prayer to his half-brother Bragi, the god of poetry. And he does that because there is a certain type of poetry that needs to be done for this job to be completed. Now Thor is preparing his power and himself to right all the wrongs. And Thor says it may seem impossible, but he has to try. And that's real because you never know until you try. Then Thor says, Odin, be with me. And he uses his chronokinesis power to fix all the damage throughout the city. And throughout those panels, the narrator was speaking. And I'm gonna summarize what the narrator was saying. The narrator says, imagine yourself climbing a mountain and you have exhausted all of your energy. And then you see it's another mountain, but you have to climb it because lives are at stake. And if you haven't faced your mountain upon mountain, I hope you don't. But if you have faced it or are going through it now, you have the courage of Thor. And now we see a restored Statue of Liberty. And Thor says he's been blessed by Odin or his half-brother Bragi. And I know he's just glad the job is completed. And now the people that were hurt by the damage and caught up under it are now being freed and cared for. And Thor says the dead remain dead. And I know that pisses Thor off because they were innocent. And this is how you know Thor cares about the people of Earth. He decides to leave because he knows he's Toranos' target. And if he stays on Earth, there will be more innocent lives lost. And he can't go back to Asgard either because he doesn't want that elder god to go there and destroy things. And Thor knows it's his job to protect Asgard, but he has to do it in absence. Now Thor takes off with Mjolnir, breaking space barriers to get to where he needs to go. And he arrives at a place where he will be the only one in danger. And that place is the gray area of the moon. And that place was once where the Inhumans were. Now Thor says this will be a great place for a battle. Then he brings up how tired he is. And with every second he draws closer to being in an all-sleep. And Thor can't hold it back no longer. And he knows if and when Toranos comes after him, he will be weak, hoping for a miracle. Then somebody says Thor's name, and it's Loki. And Loki asks Thor, "Do you trust me?"
No.
And Thor like, "Dog, what?" And since Loki is there, Thor wondered if Sif saw him and what was going on. And Loki like, "Nah bro, she may be the guardian of the Bifrost, but she ain't your babysitter." Then Thor tells Loki everything that happened with him and Toranos. And Loki knows Thor is about to be in the all-sleep. And Thor says he must warn Asgard about Toranos. And after that, he don't care about any enchantments on him for protection. And Loki cuts off Thor and tells him, "You have to answer the question." And Loki asks Thor, "Will you trust me?"
No.
And Thor says, when a trickster asks, "Do you trust them?" it means trouble. Then Loki says, it's important to answer the question, and you must answer it the right way. And Loki asks Thor, "Do you trust me as a loyal subject of Asgard?"
No.
And Thor's like, "Dog, what are you saying? Like, I just asked for your help. Yes, I trust you." Then Loki says, "That's good." Then goes on to ask, "Will you trust me as your sibling who loves you?" And Thor looks at Loki like, "Are you good? Are you okay?" And Thor says he does trust Loki. And he adds on to that by saying Loki is his kin. And he even brought Loki back to life, all because he missed Loki. And Thor says he trusts Loki as his own blood. Then Loki says he has one more question for Thor. And Thor says he's about to pass out, but Loki cuts him off. And they say this one is the most important because the future lies on this. And Loki asks Thor, "Do you trust me, even as your enemy?" And when I read that, I'm thinking in my head like, why would I trust you as my enemy? And after Thor heard that question from Loki, he has many memories from the times where Loki was evil. And Thor wonders what would this bring and what could it cost. And he knows he could not let what was about to happen. But Loki said it was important. And in Thor's heart, he already made his decision. And Thor says he does trust Loki, even as his enemy. Then Thor tells Loki, "Be what you must be and do what you must do." And now we see Loki in a new form. And Loki says it's been a long time. And it has been some time since we've seen Loki be evil. And Thor says it has been a long time. Then Thor says he has no energy for mercy because he's already fought a war today. Then he asks Loki, as his enemy, his brother, and as his king, "Do you trust yourself? And is this a wise direction to go in?" And the narrator says this is a version of Loki that Thor has never fought before. And Loki answers Thor's question by saying that they will find out. And Thor is now up against Loki in their new aspect, the Teller of Tales. And the narrator says every tale must have their ending. Now this issue was rated P for peak. 10 out of 10, bro. 10 out of 10. And I can't believe it ended like that. I actually threw the book because I was salty it ended like that. But I'll catch y'all in the next episode of Immortal Thor. God bless. I'm out.